My name is Grace Barber-Plenty. I'm one of the programmers for London Film Festival and a self-confessed Janelle Monáe fangirl. I'm going to play it very cool, very, very cool, but I am as excited as all of you to be here today. I will never forget I first discovered Janelle and her music looking through a copy of my mum, who is somewhere here in the crowd, my mum's Vogue magazine. In about 2008, I saw this person wearing this amazing black and white suit with the coolest hairstyle I'd ever seen, and I was like, who is that? I need to know everything about them. And now I like to think that I do, and now we're here. So please join me in welcoming to the stage an actor, a musician, an activist, an author, a fashion icon. I'm sure I've missed some things because there's just endless limits to everything that they do. Janelle Monáe.
Oh. Wow. I'm not jet lagged anymore. This is fantastic.
They've
Hi.
woken you up.
Yes.
Janelle, thank you so much for being with us today and for being at the festival. Obviously, we're so excited to be closing the festival with Glass Onion on Sunday, but before then, we're going to take a little look back through your career.
Lord. Oh, Lord.
So to get us started and put us in this this filmic mood, the first question I wanted to ask you, and this is maybe a big one to start with, but what is the film or films that made you fall in love with cinema?
Ooh. Wow. So I grew up in Kansas City, Kansas. All of you been to Kansas, right? But I guess in some way, because you know about The Wizard of Oz, right? Judy Garland. I was obsessed, still am, with Judy Garland. And but where I grew up was not at all like that. Like, no. I grew up in Wyandotte County. My Wyandotte is the name of a Native American princess, so a lot of indigenous roots there. I grew up in one of the poorest counties, so I grew up to like working class parents. And for me, the arts always just like made things better. You know what I mean? Like when you grow up with working class parents, your parents, you see them working sun up to sundown, you know, living paycheck to paycheck. Christmases were, yeah, you know, but whenever I got an opportunity to be in a talent show or whenever I got an opportunity to go to the cinema, and I had parents who let me watch a lot of things. Like I remember seeing Boys in the Hood. I remember seeing, you know, all of the Tim Burton movies. Beetlejuice was one of my like favorite movies, and I was like, I want to do that level of like acting. And I don't know, I was just always like, you know, Willy Wonka, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, like all of those characters all the way down to Freddy Krueger, Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, I'm a huge horror lover, and I just remember watching that with my cousins. I'm like one of 49. I have 49 first cousins. So I grew up in a big family, so we always watched movies. We, you know, that was a time for me, and it was a time for me to dream. And then once I got into, you know, being able to combine singing, because I loved Prince, I loved Grace Jones. I was scared of them. I really was. I would have dreams that they would chase me in my dreams. And so when I finally got an opportunity to, like, can't even believe I'm saying this, meet them, I was really scared. But they, like, it was so warming to the soul. But I think it's just storytelling in general, you know, and I think cinematically too. So like even down to putting on an outfit, you know, I create these sort of characters, and I think I've kind of been like this for a while. I mean, how else can we make sense of life if we don't add some, you know, storytelling in it?
A little bit of glamour.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the film Metropolis, which I know has been a really big influence on your career. What is it about that film that you love and that's influenced you so much?
I saw it right when I was deciding to become an independent artist. You know, I was just like, I'm gonna go the independent route, sell CDs out of my trunk, and I'm gonna write my own sort of like stage show. And I had watched or had listened to Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars, David Bowie, and I was like, this is an artist who was able to create their own character. You know, they didn't have to look to Broadway or everybody else's storytelling. You literally could just do that and then take that show on the road, and I think I was using him as a model. And then Chuck Lightning, who is a creative partner with me, showed me like a lot of science fiction films, because he asked me what genre I was into, and so he showed me this film, and he was like, you know, this is kind of like the godfather of sci-fi. You know, it's a silent film, black and white, and I had never seen a silent film, you know, and what spoke to me was how it paralleled my life growing up in Kansas, you know, this constant struggle between the haves and the have-nots, where you have like working class people like my grandmother, who was a sharecropper, and then my mom, you know, was her last occupation, she was a janitor, like working class against the upper echelon, you know, rich, just that constant struggle between the hands and the mind. And I was like, this reminds me so much of just like my life, you know, and what I've been able to see, and kind of like the injustices and just that power dynamic. But it was centered around this android. And one of the quotes that inspired me was Fritz Lang's quote that said, "The mediator between the mind and the hands is the heart." And I was like, I want to be the heart. Like, I want to be that through and through with music, through storytelling, and just like I want to bridge together that gap, you know.
And you mentioned before that the way that you think and sort of approach music is cinematically. One of the things I love about your music is these sorts of through lines that you have, you know, your first EP and your albums. I'm just curious to know, do you kind of start a project and you know the start and the finish of it, and then the songs and the visuals come into it later, or do you start it a different way?
It varies. So like with my last project, Dirty Computer, I had a dream that I was kidnapped, and that all of my memory was erased and I was given a new identity. Like, I was in a theater kind of like this, and yeah. Flashbacks. But yeah, I was in a theater and I had just gotten popcorn and Twizzlers, and I was walking down like some steps, and then this usher was like, "We need to take you to the back. They're kidnapping people, they're snatching people." And I was like, leave me alone. I just want to watch, you know, this movie. I want to eat my Twizzlers in peace and drink my Sprite. And I started to like kind of go into, because I like to sit like right in the middle, like to the right, for a good seat. And I was going in, and somebody just snatched me, and I woke up a different person. And I remember taking my iPhone voice recorder and just trying to make sense of it. And it was that piece around identity being erased that really created this sort of like framework for the film that we did, which is centered around Jane 57821 being kidnapped and all of that. And so that spoke to me. Like, I knew that I wanted to talk about why we were being kidnapped, what made us so unique, so special, what made us outcasts, what made us, I guess, a threat to the status quo. I knew that it was that. It was like I needed to make sure that the community of people that I wanted to represent felt seen, felt heard, and that I was creating a church for people who were kicked out of their own churches, you know? So it started there, yeah. So it varies, to answer your question. So that was like a dream, and then sometimes you have, like, I had a song, I was on the way to the dentist, and I had to get like either a root canal or something, which was terrifying, but somehow I managed to have a voice idea around this song called So Afraid. And, you know, that started with just me like, you know, just kind of singing it, and then it becoming a song. So it varies. Yeah.
Was this before or after the root canal?
Before. Yeah.
Might not have been
before.
so easy afterwards.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't have been able to do that song, you know, if I didn't.
It's so interesting to hear you talk about, you know, science fiction, especially your early influences. I think a lot of people maybe think that mainstream science fiction is a certain way, and there's less room, I suppose, for black people, for queer people. Obviously, there are exceptions such as Octavia Butler, but why is it important to you to insert these people into this sort of science fiction narrative in your work?
Well, I mean, you always want to, I like to just show respect, you know, for people who have done the groundwork and paved the way for me to, you know, have a book, you know, that just came out that featured 5 incredible writers that I got an opportunity to collaborate with, but it was rooted in sci-fi, and we were able to like collaborate because of we were able to use Octavia Butler as somebody who had gone before us, right? And so I think whenever I have an opportunity to shine light, especially with this generation who may not know who Octavia Butler is, you know, just using her as an example, whenever I can do that, it just feels like the right thing to do for me. So, yeah.
And your music is so sort of free in the way that it moves between genres and moods, the people that you collaborate with. Is it important to you to sort of not put a precise label on the work that you do, like whether it's R&B or pop, you sort of move between a lot of musical modes?
Yeah, people say that a lot. They're like, oh, you're so eclectic. And I'm just like, okay, you know? Like, why not? Like, who wakes up? I don't know. Like, that's crazy to wake up and, like, limit what you need to do. Like, I'm only going to do this. I mean, sometimes I am like that, where I'll just, like, I might wear the same colors for over a decade, you know? And, like, be super hardcore in that. But I think when it comes to music and storytelling, like, being able to have that freedom has been important to me. And I think early on in my career, I kind of used the word no. I mean, I also got, like, told no, too. You know, and back then, like, it was like a painful thing. Like, oh, they don't like me. I'm not gonna make it. I don't have what it is. Da, 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 da. But now that I look back, I'm just like, that was great. I wasn't ready. You know, I wasn't ready. I had not decided. I hadn't got specific enough about what I wanted to do. And I think that even within having the freedom to, you know, play. There's still structure for me. Like, there's still structure, there's still vision that I need to have. Like, it's not just, there's still a structure to the madness, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah. Before we show our first clip and move on to talking about some of your acting work, I want to ask, I think people are quite often surprised when musicians move into acting, but I always think that's quite strange considering the amount of acting that musicians are doing in music videos. Do you consider that to be acting in the same way as you do when you're in a film or a TV show, or are the experiences kind of different?
It's all storytelling to me. Like, I don't look at myself as like a musician turned actor or actor-musician. You know, I think I've probably been acting my whole life. What if I am an act? Nobody knows, you know, but me. You know, who are we? I feel like we have so many spirits and so many different sides of us. You know, just on a deeper level, I had an opportunity to do sort of kind of healing that I needed to do, and around some like personal things. And I feel like I'm on a new life right now. It's like, you know, when you get a new iOS, like a new update, I feel like a new update. And, you know, there are just certain things that don't bother me anymore. Like they used to, though. They were, you know, when you're kind of attached to some of these things or these narratives, because we literally feed ourselves narratives around what someone may think about us, how we feel about ourselves. Like, it's all narrative for me. And now that, like, I don't associate myself with some narratives that I was given, I feel like I'm just getting started. Like, it's like, okay, now we're here. Like, oh man, there's more room to play. Like, I haven't even, and I'm present in a different way too. I spent a lot of time creating art, thinking about the future. Like, it has to work, you know, I have to think about the future, right? But now when I'm using what is around me and I'm fully present in experiences and I'm right here with you guys, there's this like just new world that I think has been opened and new streamline of creativity that I'm tapping into. And yeah, I think that's like a really beautiful thing. So when I think about, you know, just who am I? Like characters and roles, like we're all playing, we're all in on an act. And I think that some people come back for the sequel. Some people don't make the cut, you know? We were just in this scene together, you know, and maybe I'll see you during the encore. Who knows?
And do you think that this kind of new act of your life has stemmed from beginning to create different types of narratives? Obviously, music, acting, you say that they're all part of the same part of you, but now you're an author as well. Is this creating this new world?
Yeah, I'm open to everything, you know. I'm open. I think I have to see it, you know, even down to like reading a script. So for this film that I'm in, The Glass Onion, I can't wait till you guys see it. Like, I don't know if you guys are fans of murder mysteries, but it's really fun, and I'm sure you probably have some questions about it. Absolutely. Or not, but
what I can ask about it, that's the
but
question.
Yeah, but I think like if I don't see it on, you know, the director, writer can send me something and I'll say, and people look at me crazy like, what, you just need to do it, you can work with this person, but I would never want to accept something if I don't see it, you know, even down to a performance. If I can't visualize myself on stage doing the move or like what the audience looks like and what I have on, I don't usually want to do it. I want to do things, especially now that I'm passionate about, that I'm going to be engaged with, because when you're collaborating with people, they want to have a good experience with you, and by having a good experience, I think both of you should be obsessed about the process and the love of building it, because once it's done, and then it becomes everybody's thing. But I think when I'm working, I like to like be in love with the idea of, you know, making it happen, if that makes sense.
Yeah, because I suppose it's a collaborative process throughout.
Yeah.
You don't just sign up to a project and then you do it and that's it, you're collaborating the entire time.
Yeah.
So I think now is a perfect place, talking of collaboration, to show our first clip.
What is this clip?
You may have heard of this film. This is from a little film called Moonlight.
Oh, wow. That was my first on-screen debut.
All right. Water for me and a little gin for you. Boy, please. I know wine used to give you that gin, but we ain't doing that up in here, shout it. You don't think my joke was funny? What's wrong?
Nothing. I'm good.
No. I done seen good, and you ain't it. And stop putting your head down in my house. You know my rule. It's all love and all pride in this house. You feel me? I can't hear you. Do you feel me?
Yeah,
Okay.
I feel you.
All right.
Woo! I've come a long way. I must say so myself.
I mean, what a film for that to be your first film role. What did you think when you first heard about Moonlight?
You know, honestly, I did a Skype with Barry Jenkins, and I always have to thank Barry for giving me, you know, an opportunity to be a part of such an iconic film. A film that meant so much to, you know, Miami, because that's where we filmed it, to the Black community, to the queer experience. it meant so much. And I remember reading that script, being on a flight before I Skyped with Barry, and I had a blanket over my body. I remember it was red, one of the little Delta blankets, and I was reading it on my iPad and just in tears, on the paper, on the page, it touched my heart. And I was like, if I'm given an opportunity for this to be like the first film, because I wanted my first film naturally to be like a science fiction film. I was like, please. And I had done some auditions, and I was like, that was how I wanted to, break into the film side, on-screen side. And so, but I'm so happy it was Moonlight, because it meant a lot to a lot of people. I can't tell you the amount of people who saw my role, Teresa, and felt seen and felt like they could be a better ally, to folks who were trying to make sense of who they are and their identity. And a lot of my role was around listening. I think I learned with Moonlight how to be a good listener, not to always have the answer, and just to allow people to listen to themselves out loud without you interfering. And I think that can also, is a powerful tool just in life. Yeah.
Absolutely. And the role of Teresa, well, all of the roles in the film is so interesting because of the three sort of different time jumps in the film. We see Teresa in two places, and then I think we hear about her later on in the film.
Mm-hmm.
Did you kind of have this overarching idea of who Teresa was, what was going on in her life between all of those sections?
Yeah, I knew Teresa well. Teresa was my older cousin, Marlo. Teresa was my aunt. Teresa, was my grandmother. Teresa was like all the matriarchal, women and spirits in my community that just kind of took you in, fed you. If you were not getting along with your parents, you could go there. So I knew Teresa well, yeah.
And obviously Moonlight is such a, beautiful, pure, heartbreaking film, but in one of the most beautiful scenes, you get to have a moment of such amazing comedy, which I think is the table scene with you and Mahershala Ali, where you're talking to the young Sharon when he's asking about, certain slurs, and you pulled this amazing face. Was that in the script, or were you like, this needs a moment of
It wasn't. That was a Janelle Monáe face. It was. It's the face that I give a lot of people that I love and care about.
Again, it said so much with so little.
Yeah,
So
it was, and people talk about that moment a lot, but it was, I just remember, I think also having great scene partners that you could just feel calm with. Mahershala, who's just incredible, and Ashton, who played Sharon. His career has blossomed since then, and it was just like being with them. And Barry created this family on set, so we were super comfortable. So I was just like, these are like my brothers or cousins. Yeah.
And we'll talk about Hidden Figures a little bit later, but you worked on two films kind of back to back with Mahershala. Did you know that you were both going to be in Moonlight and Hidden Figures? Was that a complete coincidence?
Yeah, I don't think I knew that he was going to be in Hidden Figures until we started filming Moonlight. And then it was like, oh, okay, we're on this ride together. And even when I think about like that year and that like kind of span of movies, and even the Oscars that year, like I went for both the films. They were nominated, and I was just like, what is this? What is my life? What is going on right now? And it was such an honor. It was a lot of work though, because I had to do press for both, and like I would have to go change clothes and for Moonlight stuff and then Hidden Figures stuff. And I don't even think I had a publicist at that time. I think Octavia, who became like a big sister to me, was like, do you have a publicist? You should, honey, you should get a publicist. And I was like, a publicist? What? Why? Why do I need, these things? And so, I learned a lot, and I just learned a lot from watching them act. And I just think that when I look at that, I was like, wow, I just remember where I was just in my life, and not knowing if I even get more jobs. You know what I mean? I wasn't even thinking. I was just happy. and still happy to be here.
And you mentioned the Oscars. Was quite an interesting year at
Deeply.
the Oscars,
Deeply.
especially involving your film. What was it like to be in that the most surreal moment?
It was the Twilight Zone. It really was. It definitely felt like a science fiction film. It was just like, we never really could, like when they announced the name and you had the La La Land folks come up and then all that happened, we were just in the audience. And I think we just always felt like, wait, is this ours? Is it not? And then it just felt crazy to like snatch. And then also like, it was a lot to consider. And I think even backstage, we really couldn't, we didn't know if we were supposed to be celebrating or not. It was just a weird kind of feeling. It felt like a glitch in the Matrix, in a sense. That's how I could do it. But we ultimately ended up, like, as a family, celebrating that moment, because we all worked hard, and, that film, again, meant a lot to us personally and to a lot of people who watched it. So we definitely were happy to take that award, yeah.
And as you mentioned before, obviously the legacy of the film, it's only been a few years since it was released, but the legacy is already incredible. People put it in, best films of all time lists and things like that, as they quite rightly should. But what has it meant for a film you've made to already have made such an impact such a short time after it was released?
It's a beautiful thing, especially for the folks who wrote it, like Terrell and Barry. Like, that was a deeply personal story for them. And I think as an artist, you're always like, you want good people to have those moments. And they're really beautiful people and had something to say, and there was a specificity to their writing, and, there was no other film out like it. And I think I'm just happy for them. I'm happy that I got to be a small part of it. But you always think fondly of, like, the people that you really like and think about them forever being able to say that.
I am going to roll our next clip, which is from a film we've just mentioned, Hidden Figures.
Girls.
No crime in a broken down car.
No crime being Negro, neither.
Button it up, Mary. Nobody wants to go to jail behind your mouth.
I do my best, sugar.
Not a great place for three y'all be having car trouble.
We didn't pick the place, officer. It picked us.
You being disrespectful?
No, sir.
You have identification on you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. We're just on our way to work at Langley. NASA, sir.
We do a great deal of the calculating, getting our rockets into space.
All three of you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, officer.
NASA. That's something. I had no idea they hired.
There are quite a few women working in the space program.
Damn Russians are watching us right now. Sputniks. You girls ever meet those astronauts? Mercury 7?
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. We work with those gentlemen all the time.
Those boys are the best we got. I'm sure of that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We gotta get a man up there before the commies do.
absolutely.
Whole damn country's counting on them.
That's for certain.
Hard being of service is broken down on the side of the road, though.
Right. What, y'all need a tow or something?
No, thank you, officer. I think I gotta just give him just need to bypass the starter.
She's good at this stuff.
Woo! That a girl. We're all set.
Well, hell, least I can do is give y'all an escort. I imagine you're running late to work.
Oh, no, sir. We wouldn't want to
That
bother you.
would be wonderful, officer. Thank you so much, sir.
Follow me.
I'm driving. Hurry up, Dorothy, before he changes his mind.
We're coming. Hold your horses.
Look at here, can you move like that? It gets me up, anxiety.
Yes! Mary, slow down. You're too
Be
close.
quiet, he said to follow him.
He didn't mean up and behind.
No sleep.
Dear Lord, I don't even know where to begin.
Oh, I'll tell you where to begin. 3 Negro women are chasing a white police officer down the highway in Hampton, Virginia, 1961. Ladies, that there is a God-ordained miracle.
And tomorrow, I'm riding the bus.
I mean, what an incredible story Hidden Figures is. Were you aware of the women in the story before you were cast in the film?
No, and it was part of the reason that I said yes. I was like, we didn't, when we were doing, Black History Month even, those were not options. And I was like, I wonder how many other people had not heard of these geniuses, who single-handedly changed the course of American history. Like, these are American heroes who, obviously, if it not, were not for them, America would not have been able to go into space and orbit. So yeah, I was like, this was one of those, like, I got to do this for, like, the ancestors and just to honor those women.
And now for all the people that can sit at home and watch it and learn something new.
Yeah. I can't tell you, like, the amount of even little kids, too, who are now, their parents are so, like, oh, my gosh, little Jenny loves math because of Hidden Figures. I could not get her to do well with her homework, but she saw your character, and she's getting A's now. And I'm like, that's great. Like, stuff like that does matter, because now you'll have a lot more, young kids applying to STEM and STEAM. All of that stuff is so important. I think those are like the unsung heroes who are working behind the scenes, helping us with technology and helping us advance as a civilization. So, yeah.
And the chemistry that you have with Taraji P. Henson and Octavia Spencer in this film is so beautiful.
Well, I knew Taraji a little bit, but no, we became sisters on that set. Like, it was deeply personal for us to honor each of the women, and I just learned a lot from them. I was really nervous because I had just done Moonlight, so I didn't have like a ton of experience on screen. And I just remember working my ass off. Like, these women are at the top of their game. You got to come with it, and that's when I really found out what it took to be an actor, because I had way more, like with Moonlight, I had like a little lines, and Barry wanted me to just be warm. He wanted just my essence to kind of shine through, but like, we had to have a dialect coach that I met with for like 2 weeks prior too, because you had to have that, like, yes, you had to talk, how the women talked in that time period. And we had to learn the math. So we had a math teacher. And if you know me, like, I love math, but I also, I think I had ADHD growing up. But when you grow up with working class parents, they're like, you better pay attention. We don't have money to go take you to figure out, all these things. That, like, now I'm like, dang, I could have benefited from some Ritalin or something, because my mind was just always over here, and I only paid attention to the things that I only wanted to pay attention to. And math was not one of those things. It was just like, if you didn't know trigonometry, well, you're not going to get calculus, or it could be backwards, whatever. So it was always like acting for me. I loved, yes, we get to just, that was fun. Music, fun. But when it came to math, it was crazy. So I had to really, like, buckle down and learn some of the equations that these women had to learn.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some serious acting.
Mm-hmm.
And as someone that's terrible at maths, I'm like, oh, the dedication. And was it a conscious decision? Your first two film roles obviously came out in the same time, Moonlight and Hidden Figures. You're both part of these incredible black ensemble casts. Was that a conscious choice? These are the first two roles I'm going to do back to back, and I want it to sort of tell this story through both of the films.
Yeah, no, I didn't know, that I was gonna. They would want me to read for Mary Jackson and for that part. Like I'm telling you, like it still feels surreal now that I look back at that moment. I was so in it, but now that I'm looking back, and I hadn't watched that scene in a long time, and that it was a really fun and exciting moment in cinema, and especially for actors, portraying the Black experience, and like the Black experience back then, and even Moonlight, more present day. All of it was great, because one of the things that I kind of I think I'm deliberate about it. Like the Black experience is not monolithic, like we can be at NASA doing the equations, sending white men to space, sending Black women to space. Shout out to Mae Jemison. We can be astronauts. We can be in the ghettos, taking care of young Black queer children who are trying to make sense of life and need a safe space. We're so many things. And I think it was a beautiful time to show the spectrum, to show all of us in a sense, like so I think that's always a beautiful thing, because you can change people's perceptions. You can just remind people to further investigate when you think you know somebody. Further investigate. Go a little further.
And I do think that year was such a turning point for Black cinema in a way. People maybe could avoid or weren't aware of these kinds of films, but then you see Moonlight and Hidden Figures and Fences at the Oscars. You can't look away from that. You see Moonlight winning Best Picture. You can't look away for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's an incredible moment. So we've talked about music, we've talked about acting. I want to sort of bring the two things together and talk about Dirty Computer.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to read, this must be the most horrible thing to have a quote that you said read back to you, so I will keep it very brief. But on Dirty Computer, you said that earlier it felt safer to package yourself in metaphors. The sanitized Android version felt more accepted and more acceptable. The public doesn't really know Janelle Monáe, and I feel like I really didn't have to be her because they were fine with Cindy. I just think this album marks a real interesting turning point in your career. Of course, you're carrying on a lot of the same imagery and musical sounds as you were with your earlier music, but something about Dirty Computer felt very different. I wonder if you could talk a bit about that.
Yeah. So I try to be whenever I'm creating, I'm honest to like where I am at that time. And I do think, looking back, it was just exciting to have this sort of like sci-fi eclectic mix of songs centered around, this android figure who brought folks together and who was a metaphorical figure for a lot of people, like what it meant to be othered. In America specifically, and really globally. And Cindy represented that. Like if you felt like pushed to the margins of society, I felt like Cindy could be a hero to you. And as a storyteller, I just thought that was just cool, just like being a writer. And I used to write short stories in Kansas City at this place called the Young Playwrights Roundtable, and the local actors would perform it if it was good enough. So I've always had like a world building mind, and I never saw my music career as something that should limit that. It was like, no, we can go far. I mean, David Bowie did these things. Why can't I do these things? what's the difference, you know? And when I started to think in that way, I just felt better because I also didn't have to talk about my mess. It was like I could talk about Cindy's mess and everything else going around, or you know, and then you'll get some peaks of like kind of who I was. And you know, it can be a really tricky thing growing publicly, because as I was putting out like these EPs, like I did a Metropolis EP before anybody even knew about the Archandroid, I did other stuff before then as an independent artist. But I was finding myself. I was like realizing the things that I needed to tap further into to heal the things that, I didn't agree with anymore. You know, because we kind of make these agreements with ourselves depending on where we are, like, I'm going to only do this, or I can only do this. But then it's like, oh, as I learn more information, I've changed my mind about that. I now want to do this. This is not so scary. This is not, you know, when you grow up in, like, I grew up in a Christian, like, Bible Belt community, too, where my cousin was our pastor. So you would go to family reunions, and you'd have to hear all of that. And you'd hear, you know, the Black, like, church experience, Baptist experience, you just hear, like, just a lot of foolishness sometimes, honestly. And I say foolishness, it's just like, oh, you know, you're gonna go to hell if you live this sort of way, like, and it could have been not an accepting community. So when you grow up thinking these things and then you like are free from those people, then you get to decide like what you're gonna do. And then there's still some fear because you're like, well, what if they were right, you know? And so once I got past all that BS, I opened myself up to a lot more. And I started, but I was doing this by still being famous. So like when I was coming into who I was, you know, as a queer person, I had to do that privately but publicly. I had to have these sorts of conversations with my family privately, but like I'm in the middle of working on an album. So hints of who I was becoming, you could hear it in my music, actually. You can hear it in like the Electric Lady album. Like my song Queen, not a lot of people know this, it was gonna be called Queer. And if you listen to the background vocals, I say queer.
I always thought I could hear that.
Really? Yeah, it's so there. It's there, but I wasn't ready, you know? And then you deal with the people who are like, you know, and then you'll think because you know, you may be in certain spaces where there are other queer folks and you have this fear of like, am I gonna be outed? And then you have to live with that whole thing, right? And then you're just like, you know what? Let me just go. I gotta get free of this fear. I gotta have this conversation with my mom. And then you feel like you have to keep explaining this all over again to your family because they're just like, now what? Now how does this make sense? And da, 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 da. So it's like a whole lot of stuff that you have to balance, and then you have to just deal with, well, I don't want people to think that I'm, you know, been living this lie. But it's like people don't understand that, no, I'm a real, like, android human person on earth who has to have real conversations with their family and, you know, their priority over me declaring things because you want me to declare them because you think you know things, but you don't know. Maybe you did know. Maybe I just wasn't ready. Who knows? So it's like all these layers within art, and I think with Dirty Computer, I was like, I'm ready to jump. It was time to get free.
Yeah.
You know?
And you got to do things your own way when you were ready, how you wanted to do it.
Yeah, and it was great. because I always knew I was going to do the Dirty Computer album. I just needed to like get strong enough, get my foundation together. There's this quote, if you don't work out your stuff privately, then you're going to be working out your stuff with the rest of the world. Like if you can't have like, you know what I mean? And working your shit out with the world is just, yeah, it's not fun. So yeah, so I got an opportunity to work through some things, and I got more brave, and you know, I got more comfortable, and I'm actually working on new music now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Exclusive for everyone here.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I think, you know, working with, like, I'm more free even, you know, and I'm centering more joy and more fun. I think a lot of even the roles that I took were rooted in some deep stuff, like race, you know, fighting against something. And I think I've been in this space where I've had to do this sort of retrospective, this life retrospective, and how I want to live, you know, like really being unapologetic about what I need right now, what I'm requiring of myself, what I'm requiring of my team, what I'm requiring of relationships, and the relationship with myself, and about giving myself permission. Because it's like people can have opinions, right? And say, oh, I think you should do this, you do this, da, 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 da. And then you sort of make that final decision. And I think right now I'm moving in a way where, you know, the validation is here. Everything else is like cool, but it's like, and I always thought like I was this person that, you know, didn't, but even if it's that 2% of things creeping in about somebody, you know, thinking a certain thing, right? Or you've done all these things, so just do this. This is the safest thing to do, you know, because I can take calculated risks. But now I'm at this moment in my life where, you know, I'm saying this now, but I'm the most free from like, just like opinions, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like
Definitely.
I'm like, oh no, this is the life experience I want to have, and we're gonna fucking create it. You know?
Yeah, I think that definitely shows in Dirty Computer, and I'd love to talk a little bit about the emotion picture
Okay.
that accompanies it. Well, first of all, emotion picture is such an amazing title. Where did that phrase come from?
I think between Nate Rocket Wonder and Chuck Lightning and myself, who we all three work with, we three, you know, were just like, okay, you motion picture, but it's like with music and with storytelling, like we wanted to hit the emotions. So just like, I don't know, silly artist stuff, thinking we, you know, played off a word, but it resonates, because I think we're all trying to do more this and less this. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's such a great way, obviously, to do something you've been doing anyway in your career, but really weaving together the music, the acting, the creativity. And I
We
think
try. You know what I mean? You just like, you do what you can and you keep it moving. I'm so ready to keep moving and not getting stuck in nostalgia or like what I've done. And I think a lot of, I don't know if you guys have seen the David Bowie Moon Age Daydream documentary, but I was really moved by it and a lot of the quotes that he said. And yeah, you just got the sense that, I get the sense from me, I work better with going on to the next thing, you know? Like not getting stuck by your past.
Yeah.
And being a prisoner of your past and what you've done and what you can do.
Yeah.
So that's just My jet lag talking.
And here I am making you
Yeah.
revisit the whole of your career.
Yeah, I know.
There's so many other roles that I want to ask you about. However, I'm aware we are tightish for time, so I'm going to do a bit of a whistle-stop tour, and I also want to make sure the audience have time to ask
Okay.
a couple of questions. I'm actually going to go straight into another clip and then talk a little bit about that. I think it's a sort of perfect point to really bring a lot of things in your career together. So I'm going to roll the next clip, which is from Harriet.
Oh, okay, cool. Awesome. Harriet Tubman, let's get it.
Yes.
Marie, will you help me? How do you do? How do you do? Good. We're confident, composed, wise enough to know not to look a strange white man in the eyes. You don't want no trouble. And trouble comes. You'll be ready.
So again, with Harriet, you choose a role that brings to life an incredible historical figure, and maybe in the UK at least tells us a story that we don't necessarily know about such a famous person. With Hidden Figures, with Harriet, with some of your other films, why are you drawn to these like powerful black stories?
Whew. Well, I mean, it starts with the script, like just because it's centered around a black character, I'm not just going to do it, And I think with, because that just wouldn't be honest to me wanting to do things that I'm passionate about. And I think Harriet Tubman is a legend, and we owe her so much. And it was just my way of honoring. Some projects I take on because I just want to honor that person, to say thank you. And I think this is my way of saying thank you.
Yeah.
Hidden Figures, my way of saying thank you. Moonlight, my way of shining light on a specific experience. Same with Hidden Figures. You have those different moments or not moments, but reasons why we do things. Mm-hmm. Sometimes it's like, okay, I want to take this role on because I want to know what it's like to play a dog named Peg in an animation for one of my favorites, Lady and the Tramp. So you just have, you have your reasons, and I think with this particular one, it was, a small role, but very mighty, and I had an opportunity to support Cynthia, who's a friend, who's from here as well.
Yes, South London.
Yeah, shout out to her. Amazing. And Michaela Cole, who's also a great friend of mine. I love both of them, and yeah.
And speaking of reasons to do things and moving in a bit of a different direction, Glass Onion seems like such an exciting, in a way, it's a new direction for you, but in a way, it's very consistent with your career, taking risks, doing very different things. As you say, you go from voice roles in animation, you're telling these important historical stories in Hidden Figures and Harriet. You're, doing films like, again, voice acting like Ugly Dolls. You're never really limiting yourself. But what was it about Glass Onion that you thought, this is the next thing?
Oh, wow. So when I read the script, I before I read the script, I already said yes, because I wanted to work with Rian Johnson. I don't know if you guys have seen Looper.
Yes.
But when I saw Looper, I was like, who is this director? If he ever wants me to do anything, I'm doing it. No question. I just felt that film was a film I wish I had written, wish I had starred in, like all the above. And so when I got the script, I was like, I cannot believe this is happening. And then when I read it, I was like, fuck yes, we're doing this. Grease, fuck yes, we're going. It was like, yes. And then Daniel Craig, I was a fan of the first Knives Out. And, being able to work with him, he's such a legend and, wonderful actor. But it was a story, the twist. So exciting. And then murder mystery, I'm a fan of that genre, and it's one of the most fun films I've done. I mean, as you can see, like looking back, some of my roles were kind of heavy, to say the least. And I wasn't in that. I was like, it's time to do something fun. It's time to do something, that I think this film crosses generations. I think that you can watch this with your families. I think artists, writers, I think you'll want to write. Like, I want to write a murder mystery. That would be my dream, to like write a murder mystery, do the music.
Next to motion picture.
Start directed. Like, it's inspiring to me. And I say this, like, when I read the script, I was like, if they shoot this how I think they shoot it, I think like this is going to be a really, really like a hit across the board. And I'm very pleased, very excited for you guys to see it. Yeah.
Yes, only a couple of days. I am going to open it up to the audience for some questions.
Yes, absolutely. That is what I am. I want it to be something that I write, but I'm super open. If it's something I can co-write and collaborate with someone on. But yeah, I know that I'm supposed to direct. I'm also one of these artists, and thankfully I've had like really, really cool directors who appreciate the process. I have to look at the take. Like, I look and I'm like, oh, okay. Like, versus the director being like, so I need you to just do this. I learn better when I can watch myself. I'm like, oh, I just need to be more still. Okay, all right, got it. And I just know, and they notice a difference immediately. So there's a part of me that is kind of acting and also directing quietly, because I never want to step on the toes of the director. But that's how you're going to get your best from me, if I can look at that take and direct myself, in a sense. And we can collaborate, but I need to see it. With Dirty Computer, I have I have a really amazing team. Like, I've been pretty much with the same creative team since I started. Like, I, always like run ideas past them, and we just kind of sharpen each other's swords creatively. And we knew the project, so we were like, okay, what's the best way to make sure that because when you come, you want to hear your songs too. So we knew we had to have strike this balance of, we know it's a film, it's an emotion picture. How can we bring some of that into the live experience, but also make sure that I'm connecting with you guys and performing just as the artist delivering the message. Sometimes you just want to go and I just want to hear my artist sing my fucking favorite songs. I don't need to see all this. So we tried to strike a balance. We tried, and I'm happy that you were satisfied. Yeah. And then also budget too. I don't have Beyonce level money. You know what I mean?
Yet.
Like, it was like, okay, how many band members do we really need? How many screens do we really need? So. Like, when I think about careers, this person as an actor, their life as an actor only, because I don't want to get into all this, but Johnny Depp has a very vast, his career, the amounts of roles from the Willy Wonka to, Sweeney Todd, to all of the dramatic roles. Whatever the Janelle Monáe version of that is, maybe it's something even better, but I want to be able to do those sorts of transformative characters that people are dressing up for Halloween with like, I'm thinking like that level. I'm ready to go there. Yeah. So,
We're ready to see
yeah,
that.
something grounded, but, you know, embedded in the hearts and minds of children forever.
Please give it up for our incredible guest, Janelle Monáe.
Thank you. Thank y'all so much. Thank you.